Hey, everybody. Today's conversation features Ian Ferguson. Ferguson?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. He writes SEO TLDR on Substack, where he provides weekly updates about SEO, tech, and AI. He's also the head of SEO at VentureStream. Ian, how are you?
Very good. Nice to see you in person, Kenny.
Yeah, I know we've
Well,
connected
although
thoroughly online, digitally. I know we connected thoroughly through Anna and her channel, her chat channel of how we grow on Substack,
yeah,
which is something I really want to get into with this podcast because Substack has really taken off since the beginning of this year. And I think Chris Best, the CEO of Substack, recently posted it just got ranked number one on the news platform in the Apple, what is it? Like the
the Play
Apple,
Store. Yeah, I
the
think
Play
the
Store.
same for Google's version of the Play Store. Yeah, it's doing really well. I'm really enjoying it over there as well.
Yeah, and it's been a really interesting platform because even though it's been around since 2017, I feel like it just really picked up traction within the last 2 years. And I know you've been on it for the last year and 3 months, if
Pretty
I'm correct.
much. Yeah, I heard it. I'd never heard of it. It was actually off the back of a YouTube video from Ali Abdal, and he was talking about newsletters, and he mentioned it, and it was a really it's kind of a no-brainer offer. It's free. You don't have to worry about paying for anything unless you want to monetize. But yeah, it's been really good. Um, but like I've been writing these weekly updates for about like say a year and 3 months now, but I've never really pushed it. It's kind of like a fire and forget strategy. I just wanted to prove I could do it. But as soon as I've been engaging with the community, like and as where it started just before Christmas, it's just really, really took off. Um, Loads of people have got the you're actually kind of post like you know this, but notes is their kind of however you want to call it, like their social posts. As soon as you start like engaging with those, just it's really, really friendly community. Um, yeah, and it gets results. Like especially when compared to something like even LinkedIn, is really slow. X and Blue Sky most recently, which is better. But yeah, really enjoying the platform. Should hopefully grow.
Yeah, let's talk about the gamification. I feel like that there's this fork in the road where Substack, I feel like they're trying to figure out where to go, with the
Mhm.
release of Notes. I think Notes were released last year in 2023, something like that. And I follow Mark Cuban. He doesn't really post, but he was talking about how he went to Substack to escape Twitter, and Notes is
Yeah.
kind of Twitter-esque or X-esque, right? How are you feeling about Notes?
You can tell it's still in its early phases. Its early phase. It's not very polished. Um, in terms of you kind of, I don't know if you notice this, but if you're scrolling through the feed, you'll kind of click on a post, engage with it, and then when you go back, you're kind of at the top of that feed again, and it's can be very frustrating. But yeah, I think the longevity of notes is a lot longer. So I'm still getting comments and likes from notes that are published kind of before Christmas. So there's something in the
Yeah,
algorithm that's
it's
just making
it's
it a bit more
quite
longer lasting.
strange the refresh.
Yeah. Obviously, something like X, you
Yeah,
post it, and
the
within an
the
hour,
ref
it's gone.
yeah, and I know, like you said, I think they're in their very early stages where they're figuring out the back work of it. And it's, sometimes I think it's gotten better in the last,
Mhm.
like, I remember when I first started, I would see stuff from 2 years ago or from a year
Right.
ago, from some like 365 days ago, and the algorithm on it is very strange. But yeah, I do agree with you, and it's been really good. I think for growth wise, but it's also kind of a distraction, right? And it feels like shoot, I should be finishing my article versus I'm here now, I'm spending 30 minutes on notes. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to find a balance between spending a lot of time on notes and actually finishing an article. And I feel like that's something that a lot of users, a lot of Substackers are also currently in confusion right now about. Is like, how do what do I need to do first? And I think especially like
Yeah.
going on to a new platform is, what do I spend the time on? Do I spend the time on publishing? Do I spend the time on notes? Yeah. So how are you using notes?
So no, it's a good point. I never thought of it as a distraction. I see notes as kind of like the way of growing your newsletter, or just more so maximizing its exposure. Because obviously there's other social channels, but when I've tried posting stuff on X or LinkedIn, it's not doing as well. But you're right. Where I guess the whole point of Substack was more about reading and long form, and it is going more short form. But I generally do one a week, so one news article a week, which is it's kind of really time sensitive because it's kind of what's happened in the last week with search and how you can apply that to your website to kind of grow organic traffic. Um, so yeah, I feel like I couldn't one a week's probably the minimum for that, but then I'm finding myself doing about 2 to 3 notes per day. It's very much heavy on the note side, and I'm taking kind of snippets from that newsletter throughout the week and posting little kind of tidbits on what it is. But yeah, at the same time, I probably there's things I can do. There's things I should be doing in terms of writing more evergreen articles. So like let's say like a beginner's guide to SEO, and that's something that could feature there and work throughout. But so for me, it's that balance of getting time to write that kind of content, and then writing the kind of weekly updates. I guess if you've got quite a mature newsletter and there's lots of stuff on there, lots of interesting articles, you could spend pretty much all of your time on notes, just pushing that. But if you're brand new to the publication, anything under than like a year in, then potentially just ignore it until you've got that bank of content. How about yourself, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm doing the same. I'm I'm publishing to think about what to cut out for notes, which I guess
Mhm.
hand in hand is I'm not really sure if that's the original intention for publishing, right? It's I'm now kind of writing newsletter that will have snippets of what I feel could go viral,
Yeah.
or could really, in a way, also it's like could really help those who are reading it. But the main purpose of thinking this way is to create that hook.
Mhm.
So, and that's something that I'm still really battling myself. I'm like, okay, I just want to really write because, the whole purpose, like I said, getting on Substack was to write. So I've actually been having a lot of fun with it. I've been replying to a ton of folks, really meeting and engaging really cool people. And how I'm using notes right now to train the algorithm is I'm actually muting a ton of accounts. uh,
Yes.
and it's a lot of these accounts that are either super grow, follow for follow,
Mm.
or that try to buck the trend. So I feel like I've trained my algorithm pretty well because I'm now seeing what I really want to see. um, and I've read a lot of really good articles. So I try to really cautiously scroll and slow scroll and engage, with the people that are that I find interesting. And I'm kind of spending at least 2 to 3 minutes on each post, whether I'm restacking or commenting or just thoroughly reading their post. And it's been a really good, experiment so far because, yeah, the algorithm I feel like can be trained, and that muting accounts is as mean as it sounds. It's a really good way to train it. But I've gotten pretty good traction from it so far. This is my second month, and I think I'm close to 300 or something like that. And you know, I've really taken this time, in my 2 months here, being on Notes and being on Substack, just to really like learn from the creators that are doing
Yeah.
well on Substack. I think when I first started, I just made a list. I made a quick Notion list of people that are like doing really well. I
Mhm.
studied them and like look at their templates, look at how they customize their homepage and what works for them. And because for me, I don't know about you, but for myself, I'm pretty new in the newsletter space as a video producer. I don't really, newsletter for me, building my business was never really a big importance, right? Like
Mhm.
it was always about social, it was always about videos. And as a person myself, like I loathed getting newsletters, and like it, especially the ones that come to your inboxes as spam. Or
Yeah.
I've always had a bad association with newsletters and email, not emails in general, but just kind of newsletters. And yeah, I'm just learning right now. It's all personal development, and I've been having a blast with it. It's been a really interesting process and time. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess, yeah, there was a point where I guess people, you get to kind of newsletter saturation, don't you? But I feel, because I'm probably, so like personally from a newsletter point, this is like my own newsletter and I'm trying to grow that. But obviously with what I do at an agency working with e-commerce clients, we've got, clients that have got, 50 to 100,000 people on their email lists, and kind of some of my job is looking at those lists. How can we build those numbers? A lot of that's e-commerce, and a lot of that's the stuff you see where it's like subscribe to our newsletter and get 10% off your first order, and all those kind of hooks to get people on the list. But those, like from a personal view, they're just them to me are the annoying newsletters. Um, but they also work, especially for e-commerce, where it's kind of a case of you see revenue spikes whenever you send an email. But I think brands are a lot more conscious now in terms of how often they send them, how frequently they send them. And I guess email personalization is the kind of hot topic right now in terms of how can we, you don't want to just send one blanket email because that's probably not going to appeal to 90% of your audience. But I guess Substack's a different way, whereas you're only subscribing to the newsletters that you're actually going to enjoy getting, or that you're going to find useful. It's not like a closed site where you're going to be sent links to women's dresses. That to me are just going to like get rid of it, spam it, unsubscribe, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting, and I've been doing a similar thing. So I haven't actually muted anybody. I've just never thought about it, but it's a good idea because I don't know if you've seen the same, but there's kind of those hooky kind of style notes that go around where it's exactly the same formula, and sometimes I'll see 5 of those in a day. I'm guilty. I've done it myself once to try it, and the one I did was the biggest, the one that got the most likes. I think usually I'll get like maybe it's 10 likes is a good day, and this one it's on like 120, and it's very formulaic and it's proven to work. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, is that really me? Is that what I'm about? Kind of thing. So experimenting on a personal level as well, like you.
Yeah, and those very hooky notes. So what I've learned as well is that the more you click on these kind of hooky notes, the more they pop up, regardless of
Hmm.
how long you spend on them. I did this silly experiment where I clicked on a hooky note like that, and I refreshed my feed, and there were 4 posts back to back that was similar to that, and it's a
Yeah.
very quick active algorithm. So the notes that try to draw people in, like the hooky notes, they work really well because once you've clicked them, you've already took the bait, right?
Yeah.
And I just
That's
keep
helpful.
popping up, and I think that's what makes it work really well, and that's why a lot of these notes garner such big attention because you're seeing the same thing in a row, and it's a really fun but tricky algorithm. But if you have not muted anybody, like you said, you have not, I would try to mute and see what that looks like for you.
Hmm. If you mute, can you just mute? Would it mute that entire person, or would it mute that kind of note? Because I know it's similar with Blue Sky, where you can say like, "Oh, I'm not interested in this topic." It doesn't necessarily block the person, but for example, if it's anything about, I don't know, like politics or something, I'll just say like, "Show less of this." But it might be that that person only posts about politics once a year, and I don't want to, meet them entirely throughout the year, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it mutes the account itself,
Okay.
but you can still find the person. So sometimes I still see the person that I've muted, um, but I kind of look through them and I'm like,
Yeah.
have they changed? do they do they deserve do they deserve a second chance? And
Mm.
most of the time, like they do, and I unmute them, but
I'm
they're
curious to know if I'm muted now, Kenny, because of that cookie post.
no, 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 and because I still like I've seen enough to know who is overextending their usage of notes like this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and I try to really, because now it's like what's the shame right now is there's a lot of spam and
Hmm.
scammers that are on Substack, so I try to be really careful with who I click. It's whether it's the faceless anons or people that you can, I mean, you and I can probably generally tell who is a scammer or who is a bot, right, within
Yeah.
like a pretty short amount of distance. But yeah, these are so tricky as well because I don't really know what their purpose is currently. I kind of do.
Hmm.
It's always a fishing expedition, and it's something I feel like most people on Substack that are pretty generally tech friendly, since
Yeah.
being on Substack, I feel like they're pretty good with it. But every once in a while, I see someone respond to a spam, and I'm like, ooh, it's
Mm.
you try to warn them a little bit, but it's a little tricky. But also muting anon accounts are pretty powerful as well. I'm not advocating to block or or just muting it, like like nuking accounts, but
Yeah.
just be careful with who you're engaging, um, because I think we've kind of just seen them all over, huh?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I think I've noticed with the demographics of Substack quite varied as well. Something like you can look at something like TikTok or Snapchat and you can generally say what age roughly or on average the person's going to be. But I feel like Substack's a lot broader. And I know obviously this isn't generalizing, but generally like the older people in my family are more likely to fall for those kind of hooks and things. So I guess it's as a community, I guess everybody's got a meeting's a good idea, I guess, or blocking if you know it's obviously deceptive, kind of malicious intent there. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
um, my wife joined Substack before I did, and she sometimes engaged with accounts like this. I'm like what's happening here?
Yeah.
Like and I try to teach her like, this is how you spot an anon account, or this is how you spot a bot account. But I feel like they're doing okay with it.
Hmm.
The amount of spam and bots have decreased, or maybe I'm just getting really good at muting. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. That's interesting. I guess it's the funny thing about Substack as well is you get the person's email data like straight away, and that's very rare
Yes.
for a social media platform. It's unless you're using something like there's a couple the names are gone those email subscription services. But you actually get the email data. But if something like LinkedIn or X or any other social channel, you don't see that personal data. So I guess that's quite a good opportunity for hacking and somebody trying to get as many subscribers as you can because you've just literally got a whole list of emails that you could do bad things with if you were. So yeah, I guess that's probably target more on that side. But yeah, but at the same time, it's
Yeah.
cool to build that up because sorry if I'm going off on a tangent here because this newsletter, that current newsletter started on LinkedIn, um, and it was back in I guess 2023 where it was just like I want to start something, let's just start because I'm one of those I'm one of those people that will give any excuse to not start something. Um, so I just did it one week. I just did it. The first I've left it up there, but the first email's terrible. I kind of thought like, oh well, could I use AI to a bit more to do this? And I think I just like aggregate a lot of data and put it up. And I was like quite proud of myself because I'd done it, but part of me wants to delete that from the internet because it's so bad.
What
But
was
yeah, it progressed and it progressed and like on LinkedIn, and then I had about 400 subscribers on LinkedIn, and then just I've kind of swapped to Substack, starting from zero again. But pretty quickly already, the growth from Substack's just outpacing LinkedIn by kind of a magnitude of 10 kind of thing.
what was your first article on LinkedIn? What was that about?
It was just a roundup of the week's news. I thought from where I was coming from, because I read loads of SEO articles, I've got about kind of 10 that get emailed to us through the week. Um, and a lot of the SEO articles are written for other SEOs. But I'm like, well, I know there's a gap in the market where it's for the likes of clients. So the kind of person that would read these newsletters. So mine was more targeted towards kind of marketing managers or CEOs who just
Mm,
wanted to know the top level things, hence the TLDR. Whereas a lot of the things I get, it's a lot of it's experiments, or it might be somebody's testing something, and that ultimately that test might not even happen. Nobody might say it, so what's the point in pestering it? So it was just kind of like all the articles I'd acquired through the week, like the top, 5 to 7 of the ones I thought going to make the most impact, or something you could actually do something with, rather than just like Google's changed this color from red to a slightly lighter red. Um, so yeah, that's what they've always been about. But this year, very much want to, like I say, write more kind of long-term evergreen articles where you can. So starting, I guess next week with some Substack related articles on SEO. Um, I had a guy reach out actually who's kind of software engineer, and he's asked if he could kind of co-write something with us, which I've never done before. So that'll be interesting. Um, but yeah, and I guess it's another collaborative kind of benefit to Substack being able to do that. But yeah, that's how it's grown, and it's still growing. Like I said, roughly on LinkedIn, I'm getting about one a day,
mm.
roughly one new subscriber a day. But on Substack recently, it's been anywhere between like 8 and 15 in a day, which is
Oh
which is
wow.
really good. Yeah,
Are you cross posting on
yeah,
LinkedIn and Substack as well? Okay.
yeah. So I still have the LinkedIn newsletter going, but it's very much a diluted version of the Substack. So I've tested a few different strategies. I've tested both and posting both exactly the same. I've tested a really light version of like linking through to my Substack just to encourage people to go over, but I found that I didn't get
Mm,
any people from linking over. I haven't gone as hard as I've seen some Substack writers who also write on LinkedIn where it's just the title will be there and then pretty much the first sentence and then it's kind of click over to Substack. I'm doing a thing, so if I've got 10 stories, say, I might post five on there and then five underneath with no information, but that all link to the Substack. So kind of trying to pull people over. It's difficult though, because I think it's just people on LinkedIn who just, are happy to stay on there. Um, when you still get the email notification on LinkedIn. So if somebody writes a newsletter, you get that notification. So there will be crossover. There'll be some people who are subscribed to Substack and some to LinkedIn who are getting kind of double notifications. But ideally, I think LinkedIn would just be more of an advert to get people over to Substack. But I still want it to have value. For some reason, I don't want it to just be like a blank page. Go to Substack. But yeah, so I'm doing that element, and then I'm posting on mainly Blue Sky and on LinkedIn. So trying to do one post a week. And usually sometimes it's related, sometimes it'll be something new that's come out, and there'll be like a soft call action at the bottom where it's,
mm,
I don't know, if you want more um, information like this on a weekly basis, sign up to Substack. Um, I never put the link in the LinkedIn post because I heard that was bad and it reduced visibility because LinkedIn want to keep you on their platform. And Blue Sky, um, again, I find that if Blue Sky is kind of like a Substack, um, Blue Sky is to X what Substack is to something like Medium or LinkedIn. I don't know. Um, a new
mm,
platform, engagement's higher on that. X, if I post it, it just disappears.
mm.
I get zero engagement, and I don't know if that's because I don't have many followers on X, or if it's because I've been, I don't know, blacklisted because it's such an old account, and I've had a
Mm.
period of probably 10 years where I didn't post a thing. So strange one, but yeah. How about yourself? Are you finding that cross posting works, or are you just solely like sticking to Substack?
Right now, I'm currently sticking to Substack. Um, I've never been a big LinkedIn user. I think those days um, when I was reading a lot of LinkedIn posts where it was all growth and these kind of
Mm,
very traditional LinkedIn posts, I never got into it. I never liked it, and it was always very it was always very like cringy for me. You know,
Yeah.
and of course it works for majority of people, but the style of LinkedIn just doesn't really resonate for me, right? Haven't made any connections on LinkedIn that feels very normal to connect with on Substack.
Mm.
You know, it just feels like Substack feels like a pretty nice local cafe, right? Whereas LinkedIn, it's I don't know, it's like a Starbucks in downtown Manhattan where people are just doing their own bidding and trying to figure out their own stuff. So it was never my style to begin with. I'm quite heavy on Twitter because I use Twitter a lot for sports. I'm a huge basketball junkie, and Twitter, regardless of however people feel about it, Twitter or X, sorry, um, it's still really fast information, especially in the world of basketball. I used to cover basketball. I was the director of photography for Bleacher Report, and I used to cover a lot of sports, and I'm very involved in sports. So real time wise, to be able to see trades and to be able
Yeah.
to see updates on teams, it's very useful for me. And you know, I've been on Twitter for almost since its existence. Real time news, being able to, I think when there were so many of these events happening in Ukraine or anytime there was, I don't know if you remember the whole submarine explosion thing, but all these
Yeah.
all these quirky, fun uh, Twitter accounts, and you know, I generally like the atmosphere because I'm kind of quirky within my writing and my humor as well, so that fits more of my style. But I haven't cross posted on Twitter. I posted once on LinkedIn just to let people know that I'm alive, and I'm posting on I'm posting on Substack now. So just and most majority of my LinkedIn people are all clients, you know,
Right.
whether
Okay.
they're CMOs or directors or whatever. So it's not like they really care about what I'm doing in terms of life or whatever. They call me when they need me, and that's just kind of where it's at. And I haven't converted anybody. Like I said, I'm not really active there, so it's more of a just like, hey, I'm alive, but I'm writing here on Substack. If you're interested, maybe I will write about your company, you know,
Yeah.
or I promote your event that you're doing. Since a lot of my clients are cyber and tech as well. But yeah, have not cross promoted yet. Like I'm I've shared photos and I've shared those on my Instagram, which I'm pretty active on. And those have done pretty well. You know, people, I feel like with TikTok ban and kind of the not the downfall, but the decline of trust in Meta
Mm.
and the US government, people are now trying to escape whether you know it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. So there's been some interest within that just because they're looking for a new place. And long form writing is quite nice. I feel like you know it's for people that are used to posting videos and photos uh, with just short captions. I feel like Substack is a pretty good route to go with to be able to tell a story. There's a really good account on Substack that I follow. His name he runs a magazine publication. I think he's also in the group chat. But Reverly Connection or Collection, Reverly Collection. His name is Bentley, but he's releasing a coffee book magazine just on photographs. So he's doing
Okay.
quite well um, on his side, just being able to niche out that brand side of like you know like I'm creating a magazine and it's something that's not really the normal these days.
Yeah. I've just pulled them up there. Things to look at after this conversation. Um, but yeah, I think. your point on LinkedIn, I was probably exactly the same. I kind of had to force myself on there because I'm not big into social media myself, but I guess it comes down to who your audience is and who you're trying to engage with. And for me, for SEO, all of your marketing managers and your CEOs, they are on LinkedIn. But at the same time, like 100%, as soon as it just makes you want to vomit sometimes, and you go on the feeds. Um, and there's others for SEOs I follow who are amazing, could do kind of excellent things to your website, and they're getting like zero engagement. And the people that are getting the most engagement, it's just like it's very formulaic, kind of like those hooky kind of style posts where it'll generally be a picture of the face or them on holiday because it's doing well, and just like a list, like really short sentence, like paragraph, sentence, and they'll get like 500 likes, and I'm like, why? Why? This is a we kind of in the industry then they're known as like the LinkedIn SEOs or the Twitter SEOs, but you wouldn't actually want them anywhere near your site. But yeah, I guess I guess it comes down to what who your audience is, and like whether you should go for it. So, and I think sometimes it's got a broad appeal because you're collecting like email addresses, and ultimately, even if they're not on that platform interacting with it, they'll get an email once a week or however often you send it. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, it depends on what you're writing as well. Because some of the lifestyle stuff does really well on Substack. There's Substacks I've looked at who I'm just really really niche. Um, One guy I followed, he just all he talks about is like wrestling figures specifically. I'm like, that's so niche. That's something you think you could never do. Some of it's just like lifestyle stuff, and that seems to do really well. What I do, what you do to a degree is quite broad. So like anybody with a website in theory could like my content, find it interesting. Most people who've got their own sites want to get more people to it. So I think that kind of dictates your growth as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm in the same boat. It's with some of the platforms, it's kind of an ick. Like I don't want to post, but I know that's the place to be if you want to be found. Strange thing.
Yeah, it's all quite different, right? Like SEO on LinkedIn, SEO on Blue Sky or Twitter, or even now on Substack. It seems to promote these kind of um, hooky posts, but also like you said, like the niche accounts are really great on Substack too. I think I know the account you're talking about regarding the wrestling because I'm also a pretty big wrestling fan, and
Mm,
there's some really cool niche accounts. There's I follow one that is just talking about the recipes of historic recipes of Mexico, and a lot of the Mexican food. Like my wife and I spent a year traveling throughout Mexico, and it really hits home for my soul and for my ethos, just to
yeah,
listen, just to read and see photos of Mexican recipes, and that's really great as well. So there's a lot of great possibilities I feel like people can take advantage of. Like when you're too broad, it's really hard to figure out what you should talk about or
hmm
um, kind of talk about, but it's also a good opportunity to just kind of showcase who you are as a person, whether you create digital products or take digital images or you talk about SEO or whatever it might be. I feel like there's a lane for you, um, as long as you're able to communicate that
yeah.
lane, right?
I think so. And obviously, the more niche it is, the more difficult it's going to be to have people find you. Um, and I guess the balance is doing that. It'd be interesting because Substack's a nice place as well, similar to Blue Sky, that it doesn't have any advertising on it. Um, I wondered if that would change with notes. I'm kind of half open to the idea, half like totally against it, because generally people don't like adverts, but at the same time, if there was an option for me to show my newsletter to people, to marketing managers or people that would find it useful, put it in front of them, I might be tempted. But at the same time, then it just opens it up to just being bombarded with all sorts of things that, you know, it goes against, I guess, what Substack's created for.
Yeah, and I think that's a big fear, right?
Mm.
depends what the advertisement is. If it's a publication that is promoting their publication, I think it has to be very selective, and this is where Substack has to vet this carefully, because if now there are just big brands that are coming in, and thankfully there are no big brands on Substack yet. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
If big brands start coming in and start paying for ads, paying for ad rev, ad spend, now your timeline, which I think it will get there, which is obviously the financial plan for Substack, right, is to have ads within notes, um, like any other social media platform, especially,
Yes.
you're scrolling through Instagram or you're scrolling through whatever. There's plentiful of notes, but I just hope that they're smart about it in terms of, like, maybe you as a writer are have the ability to promote your publication as a priority versus brands, but
Mm.
they are a venture-backed company, so I would assume there's going to be some some ROI that
Yeah.
is expected, as any VC-backed company looks for an exit, right?
Yeah, I guess that's I think it was the word of the year a couple of years ago, enshittification, which is basically when every platform starts off like a good place to be, and then every year they've got to kind of make more and more revenue, to the point where it just becomes the same as everything else. Like like Facebook for now is pretty much unusable. People drop off, then they find somewhere new, the cycle continues. But if they can be smart about it, um, because yeah, I guess at the minute the only revenue, the only way they make money is if people subscribe, and it's something like 10%, isn't it? But
10%, yeah.
I wonder if they'll do something with, because I've never looked into the um turning that on, or the ad side of it. I would like to get a sponsor. Just to be nice as a, additional source of income, and if it was relevant to what I did, that would be good. But I feel like the way Substack will eventually want to take a piece of that as well. But who knows? Who knows? Because it's an open platform, which is good. So if for whatever reason I don't like what they're doing, I could just take that email list, import it over to, the two other leading ones. Um, it's annoying is that those names have gone, but there's a few of the SEO letters I follow that use those platforms as well. Um, and there's pros and cons of each. Like there's more features on the other ones if you wanted to release digital products, or courses, that kind of thing. Something that Substack haven't looked at. So the potential's there, but yeah, we don't want it to just be the same as everything else.
Yeah, and it's really nice right now, like as you were saying. I think it's still kind of the Wild West, where they might be too busy looking forward to the future, that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now is not in their line of sight, right? So people are still able to heavily promote their courses or their coaching, or even backlinks. I think there's a lot of TOS on other social platform that punishes you for having backlinks, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's a coaching link or whatever else. And I feel like we're still safe on that, and for next, I would say 6 months, 6 months to a year, until they start really tightening down on TOS. And that's where it might kind of be, like first strike warning or whatever it might be. But I feel like that's coming, because any money out of their pocket is not of benefit to them. Um,
Yeah,
but there is a really cool creator platform called Passion Fruit. That is fruit, F
thanks a bell.
R O O T. Um, and it's really for large, like medium to really large scale creators, um, where brands are able to find them, and you're able to work with bigger brands that they feel like um, you have a influence towards, whether it's tech, SEO. But you should check that out. It's really cool. Some folks I follow on there have a really sizable ask. Like one person, I think for a YouTube video was asking about $25,000 for a 30 to 45 second ad, but this
Okay.
person has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Um,
So,
so
so that's a platform anybody can go on and, or you could list your services if you were an influencer. And okay,
I I I think it's carefully vetted, but it's it is available to public, as I would say. I mean, it's on their decision whether they approve you or not. But
yeah.
it looks like a really good platform. There's I know Standout Store is a pretty good kind of like linkage app as well, where you're able to kind of send emails, take invoices, create courses, and I think that's $29 a month as well. It's kind of like a link tree, but a little
Hmm.
more efficiency on these offerings for like a creator that's more on the not on the beginner side, but more of a practitioner side.
Yeah. No, it looks good. I've looked at similar things where it's more so for like e-commerce sites where you can find influencers and get them to kind of plug your products. And I guess it depends on their audience, but it's becoming more important now for kind of SEO and for what I recommend to clients than ever before, because obviously the diversity of results now. When you're searching for something, you'll not just get 10 websites. You'll get probably there's discussions and forums section, there's videos, there's photos, there's there's quite a new SERP feature, which is kind of what people are talking about. And I guess for those, when that's when you want to leverage these influencers and these people that are ranking, because I think solely relying on organic traffic or just Google to bring in traffic, it's becoming riskier to rely on that more. So it's about how can I split up the traffic acquisition. How much referral traffic can I get from YouTube or all of these different channels from Substacks that are in your niche, whatever it might be. Um, and yeah, having much more of a balance. How much is paid? How much is organic? How much is email, for example? So it's interesting, yeah. And I guess
Yeah,
like Google's like all about brand. That's what they push. What they say and what they do are different. But in Google's eyes, if you can create a good brand and get like a good kind of proposition there, then you'll probably win in the SERPs eventually.
yeah, it's extremely interesting now, right? Like with Google and Sora, if you're an up and coming brand, um, and let's say you don't even have the budget for an influencer ad spend, like Sora can do that for you, which is bizarre, right? But in reality, with Google now, as they're heavily prioritizing videos on their search,
Yeah,
so as as people kind of want to hack SEO, like if I'm selling cosmetics, I will probably just make about 15 to 20 videos, influencer videos on cosmetics for my brand, and link them somewhere on the interwebs, and Google will prioritize that, right? Because that is quite interesting as well. Like anytime you search something on Google, it's videos first, or it's Gemini,
yeah,
and it's probably something brands can do now. I don't know how Google will punish you for that, but it's a really interesting way since it is heavy on video.
yeah, definitely. And Google's always been like this. It's always showing people what they want to see, and it based on what people are clicking on, and if people are searching for things and the majority of them are clicking on video, it's going to show video first. There's massive fallout in the SEO community when Reddit was kind of dominating. They still are.
Hmm.
Only recently they've started declining, but SEO is like, what is the point in creating content? It's always Reddit that shows up. And in Google's defense, that's just because people clicked on Reddit. Maybe it might have been the fourth result down, but sometimes people want to hear from other people, even for something quite complex like a medical query. You would think, oh, you'd want like a real authoritative, like a doctor or like a hospital or like a NHS in the UK, them up first. But if Google find that people are clicking because they want this anecdote, they want to know people who've been through it, they keep promoting that. So yeah, so if people are wanting video, or if people are finding that easier, then they'll show that. And they're in a difficult place as well because they're becoming less and less the first place that people will search. So for me, my generation, like millennials, I think the same age as you, we probably we kind of invented the word Google it. But that doesn't resonate with as many with younger audience as well. And who will go, for example, straight to TikTok if they're looking for something like a new yoga mat or a new piece of clothing. They'll probably go to TikTok and see what's in people's videos. So if you're a fan that's just relying on that Google traffic, then you've lost that like whole demographic. So yeah, it's in a funny place. And I think your point before about short form content and one of the benefits or one of the good things about Substack is it does seem to be providing a lot of long form content. I think even with Google promoting that because that they know that's what people are absorbing. They've got that like short video tab at the top, which only appeared halfway through last year. And all the videos you'll see, even if you've got a long video, if you've gone into something in depth and you've done an hour long video on it, even now with AI, it'll pull out the exact bit from that video that you want, which I don't know how you feel like video being one of the main things you do, but is that kind of robbing, you know, you of your time or your effort in that, or is it annoying in a way that they've just kind of stolen that little bit of snippet and they aren't going to watch your full video or they aren't going to go to your website? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because I know your last article was about Notebook, and I'm really interested in Notebook itself because that's kind of quintessentially what it is, right? Like it's taking the snippets and putting it into Notebook as sources, and you're able to ideate. Like the whole point of Notebook, I believe, it has less hallucinations, and it doesn't
Yes.
train its language models. Is that correct?
Not 100% sure, but yeah, it's less of the fabrication, just flat out telling lies, isn't it? Yeah. It's the most
Yeah,
promising in terms of like giving accurate information at the minute.
yeah, and I don't, I find the use case for it really interesting. And I was listening to, well, I was reading, but also listening to your latest article about Notebook and how it was able to create this podcast conversation that
Yeah.
sounds pretty good. There's obviously you can tell that it's AI, but this is such at an infancy rate where I don't know, like 2 months from now, like how will that look like? What was
Yeah.
your experience with Notebook and translating that for your article?
I was I was very impressed by it in terms of just given it the text from that newsletter, how much it was able to add. Um, and at the end of the article, so when I finished my last sentence, there's still a minute of audio left on the recording, and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, what's that?" And it was weird how it just kind of it added its own conclusion, and just basically like summarized the whole thing. I was very impressed by that, and like because of the style of my newsletter, it's just like a bit of news, like what's happened here, Bing, Google, but with Notebook LM, it was able to kind of seamlessly put them together, which I thought was interesting. Um, and it is way more natural. So as we've done in this call, like if I agree with something, I'll go like, well, oh, yeah, and it added that as well. Um, so yeah, it's from my point of view, I was very open to the fact I'm playing with it, trying around with it. Um, because I guess the last thing you want is for somebody to think, oh, this is just like AI content or there's no human behind this. So I find it difficult to know um, like the usage cases of it, the applications for it, especially with clients, without alienating your audience and thinking, oh well, this isn't real. This is a bit creepy in a way. It's a strange one. But at the same time, I was thinking if it could be trained, I can see a lot of people deciding to use that over, say, just me reading out the article. Um, and I was thinking one day there'll be ways where a user could actually tweak that specific blog and just speak it to them in a way that they would appreciate. Because there's a few, like again, SEO videos I listen to, and the people are really cringy, or they'll go off on a big rant or try to talk about something that's funny that I'm not interested in. And I was thinking, well, actually, if that was a notebook, and if I could say, to strip all of that out, I might get that information a lot quicker and in a better format I want. Um, but then it's at one point does the AI then create the content based off the news, and pretty much you're just listening to AI from something that's been written by AI. And at what point are humans redundant? But as an experiment, like I say, it's pretty good. I'm just struggling at the minute to think of usage cases with clients or anything other outside of like chatbots potentially on websites. But
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunately it's only as accurate as the sources that you're inputting,
mm,
right? So I inputted a podcast. I downloaded my transcript from a podcast that I just did last week, and it created a podcast about that podcast, but it referred to myself in this third person. This third person, where it was like, did you know Kenny did this and this, and when he grew up, and I was like, what? And I was like, it was really bizarre to hear, but it was like I absolutely see like the future for it,
yeah.
but as far as you said, like use case wise, and it's still very early in its infancy, but I'm quite interested in it. There's as mentioned earlier, as we spoke offline, there's a big YouTuber I follow, Jeff Su SU, and he used Notebook to kind of essentially shorten some his health report. So he did a health checkup, and um, he put some he put a few doctors that were on YouTube and some publications from published health whatever their reports are, and he's like, okay, how does this correlate to what my health exam was, and how do I use this to benefit? Because I think for himself, he had some high ulcer caloric thing, and it says, okay, what can I do to lower my ulcer um, number, some
Hmm.
sort of like that, and it kind of just relayed all the information within it. Um, and I know he mentioned, because I think he is a PM for Google. I know he mentioned there's a bunch of doctors and medical professionals that are currently using it, so they don't have to read throughout um, their whole long textbook of medical histories. But yes, I mean, to your credit, is at what point is AI creating that, and how accurate is it? I like, but the answer is, I guess it's only as accurate as the sources you're putting in, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Um, I guess, but I think the more and more sources it gets, is only, you know, it will eventually, this information online is probably being written, covered in however like thousands of different ways, but it's the same topic. So yeah, I guess we've got to keep adding new information for them to update it, but then at the same time becomes there's less want for people to do that because they know ultimately it might get stolen or used in other ways. But applications for medicals like is great, and it always starts out that way in terms of oh well, how can you say no to this because it's a tool that it could save lives. We can create like they've already done it with Google where it's the diagnostic from this AI is already better than like a junior doctor kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, and it starts off like, oh, well, you don't want to stop that technology. You don't want people to not get better, do you, Kenny? Let's roll it out. But at one point, is it, does it surpass kind of human level? But that's why I think with SEO and I think with all sorts of different industries, it's like the fastest it's ever moved in such a long time. I think we've just got to kind of adapt. You mentioned Sora before as well in terms of I know there's stories I'm reading where there's studios that are kind of kind of not being built, like film studios and that kind of thing, because it's a case of well, let's hang on. If Sora can do this without the need, with just a prompt, then will there be the need for this? Is there a need for like a videographer? If in a few years' time I just go on and say make this video, make this background. So I guess the way I've seen it with in terms of like content writing is it's a tool that you could use and you should be using to get ahead of everyone, but it won't it won't replace you ultimately. But at the same time, will it? Give it enough time.
Yeah, and honestly, that was what one of the major concerns during the SAG-AFTRA, that the Hollywood strike was a few years ago, was that essentially Hollywood and its producers wanted to not eliminate writers, because it's still early in today's age to completely eliminate writers, but they didn't want to give writers um, full catalog of their writing, because they wanted to use it to train obviously their LLM for future movies and whatever it might be. And that was one of the biggest components of the strike, was writers did not obviously want that, because
Hmm.
that is their work, and that's their livelihood. And I think it got settled, and like writers in themselves don't make a whole bunch of money as far as these studio goes, but to be able to completely cut out personnel for videos, it's coming soon,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it's a few years away, and a lot of sets for the last 10 years have just been blue screen, right? And
Yeah.
it's a skeleton crew of what's truly really needed, on on a film set right now. You probably just need a director, a few camera guys, your audio. Like the crew for motion pictures have scaled down tremendously, and it's just how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm affected by it. Majority of people within the film industry are affected by it. But for myself, it's like, okay, well, I can also learn how to create prompts, right? I can also learn how to tailor my niche abilities as a DP to create beautiful looking scenes that maybe Sora is not there yet. So that adds a little bit of longevity into my career, until the next AI feature comes out, and you'll just have to keep learning the wheel. But it's a pretty good route to be on, because you're I hope you're constantly educating and upgrading yourself, because if you're not adapting to what's coming, it's hard, especially in your world, SEO and all these things that are coming up, right? It's all there, they'll be here. It's just up to you on how you're using them.
Yeah, totally agree. I think can you still hear me all right, by the way? Just
Still
my
good.
left earbud died, so I'm running on one. But
Ah,
yeah, I
still good.
think if it cuts out, just let us know and I'll swap headsets. But I think it's yeah, just how adaptable you can be is like how you can learn. There may one day be a limit of that where it does everything, but like you say, with myself, last year was pretty much all around like processes for me and using AI to basically offer more for the same level of investment. So there's, and I wonder what it's like in the movie industry or the the video editing. But I think there's kind of a list of like whose jobs are going to go first. And when I think back to my first years in SEO, the things I was doing there, like probably 80% of that could have been done, can be done now with AI, except for making the tea. But it's things like, and it's things as an agency we've charged for. We might charge, for example, if you're doing like a website migration, so you're taking your site from Magento to Shopify, for example, and you've got like 10,000 products, we'd probably charge like 1 or 2 days to do like a redirect file just to map all of the old URLs to the new ones. I did that same task a couple of months ago with with some AI and some scripts that have been generated by it. It took like 20 minutes.
Mm.
And it's basically like, you can look at the title of this product, look at the image, and then just marry it up. You press a button, it runs. And I'm like, wow, that's something I would have charged like maybe it's a couple of £1,000 for. So there's things like that, and there's things like with copywriting as well. So um, it, most people will probably know the term like a meta title and a meta description, which are the things that show up in Google. That again, we've charged like for a fair few days' work to take all of your products and write a custom title and description. Again, AI can do that in a matter of seconds, and it'll be as good, or if sometimes even better than a kind of junior copywriter. So if that's all you were doing, if you're if you didn't want to learn, you were just happy in an agency or as an SEO, just writing titles, description, that job's already gone. So you've got to be the person that's like, well, how can I scale up my work with AI? How can I put processes in place that like streamline it, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting one. I guess like just going back to Substack, I think that's more of like a lot of the content on there is more like personal. It's stuff people would read. And I guess the silver lining of that is one day if you no longer need like SEO or copywriting, you could just lay back on a kind of government income because robots have took all the job. But you can read about like Mexican recipes or like wrestling or sports or whatever. That'll still be there. So maybe it's a good time now to create more of that personalized content away from, you know, the work side of things. That might be a bit of a grim look into the future, but
No, no, and I agree with you. It's I feel like future of AI is to essentially cut down the fluff, cut down the bullshit of needing a few days to do certain things when AI can get it done within, like you said, 20 minutes, right? So the whole point of our service, as a service business, you as a service provider, me as a service provider, is to help the clients with their goals, which is sales in all aspects, right? So if we're able to do that and not take 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and to be able to do it within the hour or within the day, is it that's I feel like that's beneficial to both, because
hmm,
they're saving money on their side, we're saving time on their side, on our side, and it's a really specialized skill to have. um, and it's like with everything else, AI will take over, but you will still need operators in all
yeah.
aspects, right? In all aspects of business or communication, you will still need an operator. And like you said, it's the best time right now to work on your personal thing, because as icky as personal brand is to majority of people, if you're really specialized in your industry and you're really specialized in your niche, and you can get these results done in a quarter of the time of an agency, it's just more reason to use your service as as speediness goes and efficiency. um,
Yeah.
so even like I remember with truck driving here in the States, which is a huge thing, right? A lot of the truck drivers were upset that AI is now kind of taken over the driving in most parts. But I mean, it's also a great thing because the drivers here are working 12 to 14-hour days, like no breaks, and they're living off, energy drinks. Uh, it's not a very safe job. And of course, I understand people's frustration with they feel like their jobs are taken over, like even back in the 70s when car factories were now getting automated and people were losing their jobs. But it's, I feel like if we rest on our lore of what we've been doing for the last 10 years or 20 years, and not able to adapt, it's more of an indication of who we are as people, as we're not like
Mm.
it's as we're not progressing, right? And it's if you're able to, like, if we were to take this use case and AI can cook us lunch in 5 minutes, all for it, right?
Yeah, true. If you could do my washing and my chores.
Yeah, and like I know we want to talk about video on Substack, and it's like for people that are on Substack trying to promote their videos. And I think Substack is heavily going towards the podcast and the video route. What have you seen regards of SEO? What have you seen regards of videos and podcasts? Are these have they taken off yet in on Substack?
Um, I feel like it's still no in short. Um, I think that's the way it's going. And I think, like you mentioned, personal brand as well. I think anybody who, wants to push their own service, I think it's really important. Um, I haven't seen a lot of like a lot of rich media on Substack. There's the odd podcast, there's the odd like video. Um, the guy I follow, brilliant SEO, like Kevin Indig. He runs a Growth Memo, which is probably one of the biggest or like best um, kind of SEO resources out there. And he's this year is doing more video content. So at the top of every one of his articles, there's a video basically summarizing it. There's always more in the article, but you get the gist of it with the video.
Hmm.
So it's really like that multimedia approach, and I think that's probably the way it's gonna have to go. Um, Especially with like it being a lot of long form things. I think there's the podcasts are a perfect way of getting that across. In the same way audiobooks are, the same way like there's so many people listening to audiobooks because they can listen on the way to work or if they're going for a run or a walk. So I think it's where it has to go. I don't know if it's there yet. But it's great that it's got the tools. It just hasn't got the reach now as well. So like releasing a video on Substack, it's not it's got less potential to do well if you were to put it on YouTube. Um, and YouTube, if you want maximum exposure, it's still the place you have to put it because that's 90% of the people who use search engines will be using Google Chrome, and they're biased towards showing YouTube videos as well. So you could release like a podcast on Substack that could answer a lot, but then you're probably not going to get picked up when people are searching for it specifically. So yeah, there's issues around that, but again, that's an issue of I guess you can't really beat YouTube in that way in terms of if you want that maximum exposure. Um, but yeah, I'm seeing that start to dwindle as well. Like there's certain platforms like people want to get away from YouTube. Nebula, I've looked at where it's like a subscription for that for really niche content creators. And I'm seeing more people putting like shorter introductions on there and then linking off to Nebula or even linking off to Substack for like that monetization thing. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think it needs to translate into Notes as well because Notes says you can only add images. Correct us if I'm wrong. I don't think you can add video yet, and
You
you
can have
can't add
video.
like. Can you add video to Notes now?
Hmm.
Oh, that's good. Well, there you go. So more of that rich media. Um, so if they have introduced that to Notes, and if it would go through, I think yeah, it will only kind of continue to mature. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
the last one podcast where yeah, I think there's always an audience for it as well for your product. One of our clients sells like saunas, custom built saunas. Mostly they're very rich people in London, but
Hmm.
there are some places where I'm from, and they have a podcast all about saunas, and it's quite interesting. It goes into the history of them and the different types of wood, and you think that was so niche, but this podcast that does really well, and they have different guests from all over the world and talking about like the health benefits of it as well. And that content's a lot easier to digest than say like a blog would have been or an in-depth article. So yeah, it's good to see.
Have Have you noticed a trend within your clients that have transitioned more into long form, a la Substack?
Not really. Most of my clients are e-commerce based,
Hmm.
so a lot of it is still short form. It's like snappy videos. It might be like particularly in video. It's like we use an AI now to create videos for certain products, but it
Hmm.
might only be like 30 seconds to a minute. Um, Unless, like I say, it is like like a like a high cost product like the saunas, for example. There's much more consideration behind it, so you need to do like a long video to showcase your expertise. But no, I haven't noticed a massive trend in long form. If anything, it's more so short form, and it's like people want to do the TikTok videos, or people want to do like FAQs, the big one
Hmm.
in e-commerce now, where they kind of fed through, and that's off the back of Google. When you search for something, it's like the people also ask section, and they're like little snippets. It's very much like I think that's the way it's going in terms of people want easy to digest content. So I don't know if long form in general is dying or if the Substack is causing a resurgence. I prefer long form. I prefer long form podcasts as well. I listen to something like Diary of a CEO and it could go on for 3 hours, and I think it's brilliant. And if you compare that to traditional kind of news outlets where it's interrupted every 5 minutes with a break, and they've got to go in 20 minutes because they've got the next kind of person on, that's definitely dying. So yeah, depends on the industry, I guess.
Yeah, it's because it's quite interesting because I know on mobile, Substack is pushing out podcasts, and they have a dedicated podcast or a dedicated video, I believe, correct?
Is it like an app, like a dedicated podcast app,
Not a dedicated podcast app, but there's a
just within the
tab.
Substack app?
Yeah, I think there's a
Yeah,
tab, and I know if they've, or is that the video? Yeah, it's video, but I guess it's rich media. It's it's
yeah,
yeah, it's a mixture.
yes, the
It's a
media
mixture of,
section.
yeah, which is quite interesting, and that's kind of directly smack dab in the middle. So it kind of just led me to this discovery route that this is a big push that they're doing. It's just what I feel like, because it's if your rich media is directly center of your app, I feel like it's that has to be placed there for a reason, right?
Yeah, it's a good point actually. It's something I want to experiment with a bit more this year. Do you find that funny if I'm just on the media and there you are, very blurry, but
Oh, there you
your
go.
videos
Yeah.
come up. Yeah, so is that, I guess, is a way, like a new way to be discovered. It's probably a good way to do it. Do you find that you get more engagement or views on those posts when it's video than traditional blog would,
As
or
of
an
right now,
article?
no, not yet. I've released three videos so far since I've started. They've done okay. I think they've gotten a few hundred views. Um, but a lot of it is 3 minutes and above, and I think the
Hmm.
retention rate is still quite low for people's for for people to be able to stay on top of things. But I feel like it'll go there, and the more you build your library and your archive, and this is kind of the long game, I feel like Substack is doing. So, and I'm attuned to doing video anyway, so I'm gonna keep trying and see what works. I think one of my buddies told me that, like, there's a really big lane for someone that is doing stuff on Substack, for especially for videos. But I know a lot of people that are on Substack currently have not done it yet, and I think we both see that it's pretty limited to videos, right?
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's always been the thing that I think people are most resistant to. I guess putting the face out there is just a big step from, and um, I'm constantly kind of trying to encourage clients that they need to do more of this. But it's always like the last thing people want to do. Something like psychology behind it, but I think it's strange. It's what people want, but no, not many people want to do it. It's quite a big barrier there. Um, I think some of that is like, you don't want to look foolish, or you don't want, or you want it to immediately to be like really slick video. It's one of the things that's put me off doing it is,
Mm.
is this enough? Like just me talking in front of a camera. Um, in my head, I think, oh, well, I need the fancy introduction and all these visuals and the kind of thing that you see. But I think start now, and I think with Substack being quite new, or like just starting to grow, I think now's a chance. Just being more yourself, and just having something like organic like this as opposed to something slick could work. But yeah, something I want to try. But yeah, it's always difficult to encourage people to get on it, especially from a client's point of view. But because it's interesting, why did you choose to do it on like Substack as opposed to starting a YouTube channel? And do you think that keeping it everything on Substack is the best idea? Because obviously the way people usually say it is, like, oh, I can do a video and then chop it up, put it on 100 different places. I've seen some people, so like Kevin Indig, who I mentioned before, like purely going for Substack and purely trying to promote that, I guess, the paid subscribers as well, to really offer that as an exclusive, over like plastering it everywhere.
It's really funny because this is how my life is kind of at the same time, like how I view a lot of things. Like when, especially like TV shows, it's very strange. if I'm late, like if like Game of Thrones for whatever reason, I haven't seen a single episode of Game of Thrones by myself, and I think the first time I've seen Game of Thrones was like season six, one of the finales that it was at a birthday party, and that
Right.
was the first time I watched Game of Thrones. But long story short, if I'm so late to something, I just don't really bother to try to get on it because I feel like it's just overly saturated, and I'm like, what's the point?
Mm.
It's quite funny. But if I'm onto something on day one and I immediately like the UI, the UX, especially with Substack, I feel like writing natively within the desktop is really nice as well. And I think even my wife was really like saw how obsessed I was in the first early days of Substack. She's like, "Man, you're really like in on this," and I'm like, "Yeah, there's something about it that just feels good to the eyeballs, especially for me as such a visual person. Um, everything everything about it felt right, and the community there on Substack was really engaging, and I could really see where the potential is for for not only Substack but for video on Substack, and it's been a really great community to learn from so far. And I think especially with the bigger creators, that I just saw more potential into video, and I think especially now, I have so many ideas on what to do the video on Substack, whether it's
Hmm.
a subscription or subscriber supported podcast where instead of subscribing to your publication, the subscriber can promote their business within your video or within your podcast, or they can promote their publication on it as well. So it's you can kind of get really creative with it. And I wasn't
Yeah.
able to see that with YouTube because I feel like YouTube was just really isolation in itself, right? Like everybody's posting their own videos of whatever topic it is that they're talking about. Whereas Substack actually feels like a community. And the first few videos that I watched, I was like, oh, there's some really good potential in this. And I mostly use YouTube and Vimeo, which is really big for video production professionals, is to show off and to showcase portfolios. So I don't know. I've
Yeah.
never just connected the two, but something about Substack kind of just resonated with me really well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. I guess it's going to be a struggle for people just to obviously the advertising options on YouTube are always going to be lucrative in terms of YouTube has the control over the adverts, but I guess being more creative and if you want to monetize video, just segments where you're kind of talking about it naturally. Obviously, like with an e-commerce background, it's there's always that's always it's always a temptation to like sponsor send in sponsored products to get them featured in videos, and it's becoming much more like influencer led. Like platforms, I guess, like Passion Fruit, where they talk about it. But it'd be good to see. It'd be good if we could see more of Substack like showing up on Google as recommendations when people are searching for it. I guess they've just had the big like declared to be a monopoly, so there might have to be some changes they might have to
Hmm.
make where they're not pushing their own channels as much, not pushing YouTube videos. But I always go back to like SEO because that's just my mind's that is in that algorithm. But yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely want
because
to try it myself as well this year.
Substack is not quite optimized in Google, right? It's really it's because even when I try to search for publication, it gets quite I have to quite like dive deep into Google to
Hmm.
find like a publication. And it's just because of the limitation that Substack has right now on the back end to show up on Google, or what is it?
I think it's I think it's an issue of it being such a big platform that it's Google struggles to like dig through the information and find all of the publications. Similar to Reddit. So like
Mm,
there's I covered it a couple of months ago, but they pay something like $50 million a year to access their API so that they can read everything and publish it better. And obviously they don't have that agreement with Substack yet. But I think one way Substack users can help through organic SEO is to have like a custom domain. Um, and that's, I think the results from that will just be phenomenal because at the minute it's kind of searching for a Substack is a big like ecosystem, and within that there's all sorts of topics like we've talked about today. Um, so it finds it it'd be very hard for Google to classify what exactly Substack is because it's so diverse. Whereas if you can get yourself on your own subdomain, you can start creating content around that, and start building links to that as opposed to what would be building links to like your Substack domain. I think it's like $50, £50 to get that custom domain. I think I would recommend everyone do that. I mean, I'm recommending something I haven't done because I'm yet to do that. But this month I'll be doing that. So like buying your own domain and having it on there, and then you can start fleshing that out as like a resource and being really niche. And then hopefully, you'll find yourself showing up more in search just from doing that.
So how
Substack's got
does
the benefit. Sorry, I
how
would say Substack's got the benefit of it, like it's a massive site, but yeah, you'll be starting off with basically like a brand new site, but you'll be able to create those like topic niches a lot easier and hopefully get found a lot easier as well.
what's a good example of a publication that has published their own domain?
I've mentioned them like 3 times at the moment, but like growth memo.
Okay.
So like it's SEO. So that the custom domain is like growth.memo.com, and on there it's all of the content. But what you would have started out as growthmemo.substack.com. So just you differentiate yourself on there. And I think it's the same with there's another publication,
Mm,
WTF is SEO. And they've got their own custom domain as SEOforjournalism.com. So again, you can tell they're just really niching down on that. Obviously, from a user's perspective, is exactly the same interface with Substack. They've created like a custom layout, which helps, and they've got different content hubs, which helps. But yeah, that's like you'll often see if I was to put in the tools I use, if you look at the keyword and the visibility for that domain compared to before when it was on Substack, you'll probably find it's like half, if not less. So I think more publications doing that. And I guess there's problems like Medium. I've got that similar problem where everything's on the Medium platform, and it's just so massive. And unless Google's paying you millions of dollars a year to access it and be able to crawl it, it's always going to fall short in that way, if that makes sense.
that is really interesting because I've actually never heard that before. So when you're purchasing a domain on Substack, you have you have more control on the back end.
No, it's like so you buy a domain probably, uh, and then you just basically link it. So it's in the settings section of Substack. Choose your own domain. So it's the same control. It's just basically you just instead of being on .substack.com, you're on your own website. But from your perspective, everything's the same. So like the uploading process, that kind of thing. The only control you have is like from Google's perspective, you can create your own site, really talk like let's say it's SEO like or video editing, and then Google quickly recognize that this particular website is all about video editing. So if someone's got a specific question on that, it will know straight away to serve this because it knows this is what that's about, if that makes sense. Whereas opposed to being
Mm.
on Substack where it's just a mess of like everything's in there, like religion, politics, cryptocurrency, it's hard for it to decipher what result. And from Google's point of view, they want to give the most relevant answer to their question. And if you're like on your own little own ecosystem, it'll stand a better chance. And then there's things within that like a lot of people aren't doing, such as setting your own meta title and meta description and your own URLs, which I think is like basic level. But if everyone started to do that, they'll probably find they'll show up a lot more in Google. And then engagement signals wise, which is like another big thing, having people stay on your site once they're there is another thing that's going to be like show Google that this is really engaging content, and that's going to be your voiceovers and your video and like anything within the article, the long form article, to make it more interesting. So I think, yeah, it's one of those things where it's Google tells you if you just write brilliant content, people will come to your website. But in reality, there's things that you can be doing. Some of them quick fixes, some of them will take a little bit longer, like adding video. But it's yeah, the more of that you do, the more you'll get, more visibility you'll get ultimately.
That's really interesting. So it crawls your website better as a standalone versus versus living on Substack, essentially.
Yeah, it's like not so crawling. I don't think it has an issue crawling Substack, but it has an issue of like I would say it's got an issue of like categorizing the content.
Mm,
Um, and it be because you'll probably find if you're searching for like a pancake recipe that it'll be a blog specifically like a someone's dedicated blog on that topic, as opposed to being like a tweet, for example, which just gets buried in the ecosystem. So yeah, and it
you
would
know,
so it's about categorization. Yeah.
I love that. Do you think this is something that we can do as a use case?
How do you mean?
I mean, I would happily buy a domain
Yeah.
if you want to do a before and after comparison.
Yeah, be interesting. Do you have like Google Analytics set up
Yeah,
and Google Search Console? Because
search
that's something I
search
don't see a lot of publications doing, but
Search Console's not on my Substack, but obviously on all my websites. But I have not set that up yet for Substack, which is actually on my to-do list. But we can run a test. I mean, I can let it live for about like a month before purchasing a domain, and then
mhm.
see how that aggregates.
That'd be interesting. I think it would definitely help you, especially long term.
Yeah.
Um, it's like there is a downside of like once you first buy that domain, it's brand new to Google. So Google
Yep.
knows like it'll serve a Substack result because it knows that Substack's trustworthy. Whereas if you just started a brand new domain, you don't have that trustworthiness ultimately,
Mm,
like to start with. But then I guess that comes into building your own thing. So like the minute you build an email list, but you're not building like a brand or a website. And if you know one of the things is to get like links from other places, that really helps your website. And you don't, if you're going to put effort into that, you don't necessarily want to put the effort into growing more links to the Substack domain, or like your
mm,
subdomain on Substack. You'd want to, push it to your own domain that you control. You have information over. So I think if you're serious about like growing your visibility, then it's like it's the only way forward, really. And yeah, the use case is like SEO for journalism and growth memo, like it all, yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer from like from a long-term perspective.
I love that. Put that on. I will put that on my list. And yeah, let's. I mean, I know it's late on your time, but let's chat offline to see how we can track it because that's actually a really cool thing. Because I was looking at a couple of conversations of how people are setting up their domain, and it never really crossed my mind until our conversation. So I'm more than happy to try it out. I'm actually like just scrolling through domains right now, but I'll do that after. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, super cool.
Sounds
All
good.
right,
Yeah,
and
I'm hoping to do some more articles myself on like Substack SEO in particular. There is a few out there, but I don't think that should be a reason not to do it. But if I can back it up, because I'll be doing the same. So if I've run it for pretty much a year on the Substack domain, swap over to its own domain. I'm just in the process of trying to find a good domain because all of like SEO TLDR is taken,
mm,
but SEO dash TLDR isn't. Um, I think SEO TLDR I looked at and they wanted like £5,000 for it. And I was like, no, not at the moment. But SEO dash domain, like dash TLDR is like $10 for the year or something. So
sure,
it's
sure,
not a
sure.
massive investment as an experiment.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm more than happy to try that on. Um, okay, I know it's getting late on your time, so I don't want to extend this. I mean, I feel like we can talk about this for another couple of hours. But
Yeah, same.
my last question for this is tech stack. What is as an SEO guy and head of SEO and all things knowledge of SEO and AI and everything that you're currently updated to present moment. What's your tech stack right now?
From a client level or just
Both.
personal kind of workflow level, I guess. Well, I'm massive into the Google ecosystem,
Mm,
um, and that's just because the agency I work with have got basically like an agency account, so we've got full access to all of the Gemini tools, all of obviously Gmail and Notebook, all that stuff. So it's that mainly from tech stack from so like from a communications point, it's all Google Docs, Google Sheets. We do have like access, we've all got access to ChatGPT as well. We've
Mm,
used that for writing scripts, which a lot of them run within Google Sheets for clients. Like I say, we've streamlined the process now. It's we always think there must be a better solution than Google Sheets, but then we find 90% of the clients are comfortable with it. So we'll always, we've created standalone apps, for example, that will automatically write your product descriptions within Shopify or within its dedicated app. But then at the minute anyway, there's always that people just want to see it on a sheet. They want us to send them a sheet over and then search everything through there and then kind of upload it after then. But we've got that, and then we've got tools like for tracking visibility. We've got access to like Ahrefs
mm-hmm.
and SEMrush, which are basically they kind of do everything with SEO in terms of the keywords that they rank for. Um, More of those are just we're finding that they're starting to bring out their own AI features as well for tracking AI overviews and giving you more intelligent recommendations as opposed to the traditional audits you can do where they're not really audits. You can basically run a crawl and it'll say like change this, change that. And we know that it
Mm,
doesn't make sense, but they're getting better. Um, and yeah, and then Screaming Frog is basically a crawler which I've used for years. But they've just brought out their own OpenAI integration. So within them crawls, you can basically like uh, prompt it to do different things, such as like, what's the user intent behind this article, or how do you think it can be improved? And it's all you can link that up with like keyword tools, and you can ask it to suggest like things that you maybe haven't spoke about in that article, but that we know the search volume for that. So yeah, it's that, and then probably my side, just on the visual side, is probably just Figma as well. I find that's just helpful for getting across ideas and um, basically showing off uh, how to do things in terms of it's hard to explain sometimes, but if I'll just pull up a mock-up and say, this is a problem with your site, we need to change that. And then Bughead as well, which is basically like a customer feedback thing where you can log in and you can basically click on the elements that you're not happy with or like leave comments. So a lot more collaboration stuff, best we can. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And then myself, it's just basically playing around with things like Sora and image creation and just trying to innovate with that.
are you using Claude or Perplexity?
Perplexity, I played around with them, but no, I'm sticking with like once every month I go in and see what it's like, and there's definitely benefits of both. And I try to keep on top of all of them in terms of like because clients will ask, well, how can I rank in AI overviews or how can I
Mm,
appear in Claude output? So I try to um, keep up to date with it, but I find that mostly what you do, most of the things that you do to increase your visibility for Google, I feel like Perplexity and Claude are always trying to keep up with that, and they're always going to copy that. So it's a little bit more Bing SEO I've done in the last year for those that are really interested in Bing on those in those like AI overview sections or within Search GPT. But generally, as long as you're creating good content and as long as it's from a technical side, it's easy for access for crawlers to render and
mm.
um, basically like read all the information and then parse it. Then generally you're covering yourself across all platforms. Yeah. How about
Yeah,
yourself? What's your
Bing.
main one? What's your main kind of go-to for, I guess,
I'm
AI text?
everything on well for AI, general search queries. I'm still ChatGPT.
Hmm.
Um, Claude, Claude, I'm playing around with, and Claude is interesting. Um, but I think if I was to pay for one, I would still use uh, ChatGPT. Just how far they've come um,
Yeah.
with theirs, and I think I've made so much money on ChatGPT just using the free feature that it's kind of silly that I'm like I feel kind of guilty towards it, right? Or like maybe I should actually just keep supporting them and their growth, even though they just even though they just got about $500 million towards this new project that the U.S. government has now granted them, or something like that. I
Yeah.
haven't fully read into that. Um, but yeah, chat is still right now. I'm really interested in Notebook LM. Perplexity, I'm also kind of just playing around with. But there's a bunch of like video editing AI tools that are quite fun. Opus Clips I use quite often, for like this hour and half long conversation. Opus Clips does a really good job, essentially editing for social clips, and they can probably edit out 50 clips that are really well conversed and well thought out, provide scripts and majority of these things. So as a
Yeah.
producer, I use that quite a bit. Um, I've used Firecut.ai for editing on Premiere as well, which does it natively in Premiere. So you can cut out silences, filler noises, and also create social clips, which, in a long form podcast like this, I usually just try to leave it as it is, because sometimes if you cut out too many filler words or too many pauses, it feels unnatural, I would say. But
Yeah. I know what you mean.
um,
That there's a few SEOs I follow where you can tell they've done that to try and make it more engaging, snappier, but it just cuts it up too much. But yeah, interesting. Have you
yeah,
played
it is.
around with like voice? I know there's a couple of guys I follow that'll basically train these models on the voice, and they can read their own captions on videos, but
How do
it's
you
not
spell
actually
that?
them. Uh, Video SEO video show is one. Well, I don't know what they use for it, but I've
Mm.
heard podcasts where he's basically used like AI voice
Yeah.
to speak in his own words, but it's not him. And that's just for the purpose of like short form clips kind of thing. But these are all things I want to play around with on a personal level over the next few months.
Yeah, in terms of voice, it's interesting because I mean, for myself personally, I think whenever I hear one of these AI voices, I immediately just click out, because
Yeah.
it's very interesting. But I know that they have massive ability for virality, and we've seen so many of these go viral. And use case wise, it's quite. I think it really benefits the creator or the brand, right? Because one, it obviously eliminates the time to record it and having it edited and do all
Yeah.
the, because it takes quite a bit of time to do this. I mean, you're at least dedicating half a day to recording something, and the copy. And if voice can obviously eliminate that, of course the next step is to have voice sound like you, or who
Hmm.
is ever representative of your brand. I think that might be the next step, but I mean, it's already doing it, but it's also quite creepy. I don't know.
Cool. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Ian, thank you for your time. Really enjoyed our conversation, and domain purchasing for Substack. I think that's a key thing, and for people at Substack, I would listen to this episode and pick the brains of Ian, and I feel like that is really good advice. Ian, where can people find you?
So Substack, the main place. If you search for SEO TLDR, it should come up first. Um, wouldn't be very good at my job if I didn't. But I'm over on LinkedIn, posting, like I say, probably 3 times a week, just various tidbits and information. And I've just started my new website, literally started this year, Fergus SEO, but you'll find each other from there. And that's me going to go into more of a niche with e-commerce, because although I do SEO, there's aspects of SEO like for journalism, for e-commerce. So I'm hoping to expand this to be a bit more of a hub on e-commerce, so people selling things online, which will hopefully be helpful. But yeah, pleasure speaking to you. Pleasure speaking to you as well, Kenny. We could have to do this again. Run some experiments on your domain. See what the results are. Should be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. One more question for Substack wise. Ever thinking about offering any kind of consultation for Substack people, Substack folks?
Yeah, it's I haven't really thought about monetization at all. It's in the background, but I kind of want to just build up the audience. I don't. My thought is that if you advertise anything, then it's bad. But I know myself, it's there's use in that, and if people find it useful, so yeah. Hopefully this year, doing some courses on that. And it makes sense to start with Substack. So Substack for SEO kind of courses. I'll potentially do videos as well, just to give out some of the information today for free because it's out there. It's just yeah. But then, yeah, maybe just later in the year, some courses on e-commerce SEO, best practices, that kind of thing. I think I fall in the trap of knowing that there's loads of great content out there, and I'm just adding to something that, that already exists. But I guess I've got my own experiences, and I just have to persuade myself to do it a little bit more. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think a really good something that would really work well, not in terms of monetization for yourself, but just in terms of growing a community, is potentially being more active in communal chats and offering like a weekly workshop for SEO. I think just for
Hmm.
Substack it would be really great. I know people are really curious right now, especially all the folks that are coming in from the heavy influx from TikTok and all the other social media platforms. And majority of those people are actually pretty quite tech savvy, right? So it might be a really good way for you to lean into them, knowing that they've already have some knowledge of SEO, especially running their own TikTok and creator profile. It might be a really cool offering to think about in the future, maybe a couple months down the line. And I know I would participate as well if you're doing a weekly Zoom call on updates for SEO for Substack. And as more people get into Substack in this coming
Yeah,
year,
like
I think that would fare quite well.
how would you do that? Because there's the chat feature I've never really utilized. But do you think the chat within Substack is a good idea, or just a separate forum or WhatsApp groups or something like that?
So I would create a separate chat thread just for your workshop. And
Hmm.
Seth Workshire, I don't know if you follow Seth. Let me see. I forgot what his is called. Forgive me, Seth. Uh, his is called the Social Media Escape Club. Um, but he does weekly calls with his subscribers or his paid subscribers, and it's mostly about escaping social media, which is relatively meeting in the Zoom workspace to chat about whatever it is that they chat about. Which I haven't actually participated in the chat, but
Yeah,
I know he runs this weekly, and that might be a very might do well for you.
yeah. There was always yeah, it was food for thought.
Yeah,
I've Googled them there. I've Googled about 10 things I'm going to check out after this call, so
yeah, same here.
maybe tomorrow morning.
There you go. Okay, Ian, thank you for your time. Hope to chat soon, and I'll see you on Substack.
Yep, stay in Substack. Thanks very much, Kenny. All the best.